Cable 5 CyHawk Gameday is sponsored by Nissan.
Welcome into CyHawk Gameday. Week 1 is finally here. It feels like forever since Jeff Woody and I were together because, well, we had a pandemic squeezed in between the last time we were out here live.
Yeah, I feel like this has been 16 years coming. And if you are an Iowa fan, if you're an Iowa State fan, if you're a Panther fan, if you're a Bulldog fan, if you're a fan of any other school outside of Nebraska who played last week, this has just been the longest offseason, including last season in that word offseason, that we can imagine. I think both the entrances to when Iowa comes out to Kinnick and when Iowa State comes out to Jack Trice are absolutely going to be bananas, and I think a deservedly loud cheer for everybody to get us here.
And the tailgate lots are already full. We're here in the new Albaugh Family Plaza, and quite the scene behind us. The Performance Center, Stark Performance Center, I should say, quite the sight.
We were speaking before we started live on air, is when I committed to Iowa State in 2009, even the Bergstrom building wasn't done, and now they've got this additional facility outside. They've got this beautiful plaza out front. They've renovated the stadium. They've gotten the hillsides up. I mean, this is, it speaks to how much of an investment the administration, the university, the regents, everybody's willing to make, because this is just such a good product to watch. This team is good. The fan base deserves it. I think everybody's just excited that it's here in this wonderful new stadium.
Alrighty, so let's set the scene for what you can expect today. The Cyclones, while they're at home taking on in-state rival UNI, going to be a big showdown for them. Obviously, high expectations being number 7 in the country, but the bigger game of the day is going to be Indiana and Iowa, 2 top 20 teams, a Big Ten opening slate for them, and this is really the biggest game they've opened with in a long time. No cupcake for them. Back to this Iowa State game, though, and UNI. UNI always gives Iowa State a little bit of a challenge. A couple of years ago, we had to go to overtime to see the Cyclones win that one. Today, I expect a little bit different because the Cyclones are ranked number 7 in the country. High expectations, to say the least, Jeff, and as we talk about these Cyclones, I think that's the first thing that really stands out.
Yeah, and I kind of talking with a couple players and kind of guys that are people that are around the facility, like one thing that they've mentioned, though, is that high expectations, it's not like all of a sudden they just woke up and expectations were here. I mean, last year you left 2 losses, you go to play the Big 12 championship game, you're really 1 or 2 completions away from winning a Big 12 title. You had expectations all of last season. The year before that, there are expectations coming in based on how they finished the year before that. So that's kind of been building. It's just reached sort of a fever pitch this season. So they've dealt with expectations. But one thing, and we won't dwell on this, but imagine being the number 7 team in the country. You've worked so hard to be here. You've done everything you possibly can to earn your chance to be respected. And all of a sudden the realignment stuff happens and Iowa State all of a sudden becomes the scrap heap that no one wants. Well, there's motivation for you. So expectations are kind of matched with, well, you still have respect to earn. So I think this team is not necessarily going to be looking and thinking they're going to roll a helmet on the field and just end up with a win. They know they're going to have to work for it, especially getting a test here right away with Northern Iowa, because this team is good. They are always good, regardless of what the spring record was. There is nothing to overlook. So expectations have been building as they've gone from year to year to year. They just got to deal with them now.
And then for the Hawkeyes, expectations are actually high for them too. Number 18 in the country. You know, they didn't turn a lot over from last year, namely the O-line, the D-line. I think it's fair to say they could contend for a Big Ten West title.
Yeah, what's interesting about Iowa is that they have expectations, but at the same time, people are still, it's an uncertain expectation, because Iowa will go as Spencer Petras will go. I mean, no matter what Iowa team you're talking about, if you have good quarterback play, the offensive and defensive lines are going to be in the top, near the tops in the country. They're going to have a good secondary. They're going to have a good running back. Usually going to have a big, strong tight end or 2 that are going to end up being the season, all Big Ten. But their quarterback play determines what's going on. So if Spencer Petras can put it together and actually play well, they're going to be a pretty hard out. If Spencer Petras stays inconsistent up and down like he was last year, they might have some hard times. So that's, I think, the question. It's a hopeful optimism with Iowa because of the uncertainty with consistency at quarterback. But they should, I mean, with the lines that they have, you are not going to want to play Iowa too many weeks in a row.
No, week 2, looking forward to that matchup. We'll talk about that a little bit later in this show. But coming up, we're also going to give you a game day forecast. I can tell you this much. I'm loving the weather right now. 75,
perfect.
Cloud cover. We'll take this all day. Plus, we'll break down the Cyclones next. Welcome back into CyHawk Game Day. We are a few hours away from kickoff still, but we're going to talk about UNI and Iowa State. Obviously, we know what happened in 2019 with the double overtime game. A lot of stress on Iowa State fans, a lot of expectations. The Cyclones typically come out of the gates a little bit slow, something they want to address. What do you expect out of this game, and how important is it for Iowa State to make a statement today?
Well, it was actually 3 overtime, so if you're taking away a little bit of stress, there was 3 of them that Iowa State had to live with.
I forgot about half of it.
Yeah, so that the stress that just naturally comes with Northern Iowa. I mean, they are always consistently the most fundamentally sound team on the field, except until maybe this game. I mean, what they do is they do everything really, really well and make you beat you. And if you're going to make mistakes, they're going to take advantage of them. And Iowa State in games past has done that. So in the past 3 times that Iowa State has played Northern Iowa, they've lost, beaten the pants off them in the David Montgomery game, and then ended up getting beaten in barely escaping in triple overtime. So you have these 3 completely different experiences, 2 of which are super stressful.
Yeah.
And so Northern Iowa just presents a team that you have to put away. They're scrappy as all get out. They're not necessarily going to be more talented than you, but they're not going to be substantially less talented on most occurrences. So this is a game that, right out of the gate, if you are trying to prepare for a Big 12 season where you have expectations like we talked about in the first segment, you want to test right away, and this is a great test for Iowa State to actually have to show up. This isn't, the Sister Mary's School of the Blind. This is not an easy game that you can expect to just win. They're going to have to earn it.
And Brock Purdy is kind of where this offense is going to go through this year. He's a senior now. He's playing the game the way we might have seen him in freshman year, just a little bit more loose, a little bit more free. But he's also a lot smarter now, too.
Yeah, I mean, when you look around him, you have the best running back in the country behind you. You have one of the best tight ends just to the side of you. You got Xavier Hutchinson, who's an all-Big 12 wide receiver out there. You got Tariq Milton, who is probably an all-Big 12 receiver. He's just hurt last year. You have 5 other guys that you can throw the ball to, hand the ball off to. Shoot, your backup running back is Jyrell Brock.
What a terrible thing to have.
What a terrible thing to have. So you have so much talent. I think the thing that Brock is finally going to be able to do is understand that I don't have to do everything. And I think that's been their focus, is just getting him to understand, hey, if you get the ball to number 28, he'll do the rest. If you get the ball to number 1, he'll do the rest, and just letting him facilitate. So this is going to be a game, I equate Brock Purdy a lot to Baker Mayfield. When Baker Mayfield had his Heisman season, a lot of those games, you wouldn't be like, man, that Mayfield kid's really good. You just look at the stat sheet and be like, this dude's completed 81% of his passes for 300 yards. Where'd that come from?
Right.
Because he let his playmakers do it and stayed on rhythm. If Brock is able to play like that, again, Heisman level, Baker Mayfield's a big comparison, but if he can play facilitating, accurate football, it's going to be a really hard team to beat if he can just keep the offense moving down the field.
And you brought up Heisman hopefuls or Heisman caliber. Breece Hall's a Heisman caliber running back.
Breece Hall is as good of a running back as Iowa State's seen, and Iowa State's had a couple guys named Davis that you got to compare him to.
Yeah.
And the ability that he has is, I don't want to say deceptively fast, because we know he's super fast, but he's such a long striding runner that you forget when you're taking a pursuit angle, you're trying to cut him off somewhere, you forget how fast he's going, because most running backs have that kind of quick choppy steps, explosive, thinking like LaDainian Tomlinson, just pounding the ground. He's taken 4 steps in 20 yards. Like, it's these huge, giant steps. So he's hard to get angles on. He's hard to get a solid hit on. He's just a tremendous running back who is really poised for a big season.
And really quick, the defense too. Return a lot of starters there. I think the D-line is where maybe question marks remain with Jaquan Bailey moving on, but you still got Will McDonald.
Yeah, you got Will McDonald. You got J.R. Singleton, is a really highly touted guy they're really excited about. You got Isaiah Lee. You got Peterson. You got, so much depth everywhere. This team has finally been able to take advantage of the recruiting that they put in the 3-4 years in pulling these bigger, kind of higher level recruiting classes. This team is as deep and as experienced and as talented as you could possibly want. And there are 42 guys on the 2 deep last year that return, or that Iowa State had on the 2 deep. 37 of those return. So you have all but 5 players coming back on both sides of the ball. That depth is really hard to quantify how important it is.
And you hit on experience as well. That's going to be a big thing. We even have some 6-year seniors, and they weighed in on what it's like playing their final week 1.
I mean, last year I wasn't sure whether, I knew I'd have the opportunity potentially to get another year out of it, so I always had that in my back pocket, but now I know, like, this is it, this is really it. I mean, I just got done with my 6th fall camp, so it should be it. But I hopefully it's not too big a burden emotionally, and I just love playing the game and getting to play in Jack Trice Stadium with the guys on this team. So it might be emotional at times, but it's a long season, so I'll think of that at the end of it.
Yeah, no doubt. Like I remember telling myself that the other day. Like, all right, this is my senior year. For a fact this time, like no going back, no do-overs, so I'm trying to take everything in and, one step at a time.
Oh, it feels great. I'm excited that, we get to actually go out and show off the work that we've been working on this summer.
Some really good players for us before out on the field that haven't really dealt with a full stadium yet, don't know how to handle this or that, so it's our job as the leaders and guys that have been in some full stadiums before to help kind of guide them along and tell them what it's going to be like, what to expect. Your heart's going to get racing, things are going to speed up a lot, but who knows? It's the first one after the year of everyone not being there. It might be louder than ever, and we're kind of expecting that too.
I would fully expect it to be louder than ever, Jeff, and that brings us to now our big man on campus. Who's got to handle some of that noise? It's going to be up front for you, isn't it?
It's got to be up front because where this entire program has taken its biggest strides is in the unsexy stuff that no one likes to see. It's the offensive and defensive lines have gotten so much better over time that these guys, these front five, They've got the chance to be a dominant force. We've seen it on paper. We know how deep they are. We know how talented they are. Now it's time to show it. I think the big men on campus are a bunch of really big men.
On the offensive line for Iowa State. Kickoff for this one, 3:30, airing on ESPN+, so you got to stream it. Just get used to that, and then next week we'll be right back on air. Still to come, we got to break down the Hawkeyes, and they've got a top 20 showdown against Indiana as the Hoosiers come to Iowa City. Welcome back out to Jack Trice Stadium. A big game here in Ames, but an even bigger one out in Iowa City because it's a Big Ten showdown, and Kinnick Stadium is going to be hopping.
Kinnick Stadium is going to be absolutely raucous. And so if you can imagine the environment that's going to be in both of those with a game that actually means something, I mean, that is a dream to kick off the season if you are anyone except someone who really wants an easy game for Iowa, because this will not be an easy game.
Not at all. Indiana comes in number 17, a spot ahead of the Hawkeyes, and they tout an offense that's really good. Defense, they could be pretty sound, but I think Iowa has the goods to get the job done.
Yeah, they're talented top to bottom. I think, again, we talked about how good their offensive defensive lines are. I mean, Kirk Ferentz is synonymous with great offensive line play. That's the one thing, if anything, you could say that is his bread and butter. And they've got that again this year. They got Linderbaum, which is probably going to be a first-round pick, or first or second-round NFL draft pick. that there's talent around him. They got a couple new tackles to break in, but this, again, we mentioned it before, this team will go as Spencer P goes. And he's going to have a test right away because Indiana has NFL talent at all 3 levels. So there's going to be a lot of questions that he can answer today. If he plays well, questions answered. If he plays poorly, more questions asked.
Definitely, and that O-line is going to have to give him some time to work as well. We saw what happened, but you got to realize, too, this is his first game in a true full environment as well, and there's going to be some nerves with that.
Yeah, he's going to have the first game at Kinnick Stadium, which is going to be absolutely bananas, like we talked about, and then his second game is going to be right back here in a hostile environment, which is even more bananas. So his first couple games, again, a lot of question marks right now with Spencer Petras. Not to say that they're not going to play well, but he's going to have to answer them right now, or he opens himself up to a lot of question marks against a really good, I mean, as tough of a first 2 games as you're going to see across the country.
And he's going to have to lean on his running back, Tyler Goodson, who is going to be the bell cow this year. Last year, more of a committee approach. This year, I think you're seeing him every down, just about getting 20 to 25 carries a night, if not more.
Man, he is good. I mean, he is as advertised. And as a former running back myself, I dream of being able to do the stuff that Goodson can do. And if it wasn't for the guy in Ames, he would be getting all the attention of the state, of the national, regional media, of talking about, best running backs in like the area. Because as far as good as Breece Hall is, Goodson's like right there.
Yes.
Because he is explosive, he's quick, he can catch the ball out of the backfield. I mean, he is super talented, and with that offensive line, he's going to have a lot of opportunities.
And then defensively, this is a secondary that I don't think is going to get beat over the top much at all because they return so many key pieces at the D-back and safety spot, but that D-line is where a question might sit.
Yeah, the defensive line, they lose their best player to the NFL, and they're going to have to replace at least someone. I mean, Iowa and Iowa State both return a ton of guys, but there's at least a little bit that they're going to have to figure out. I don't think, again, offensive and defensive line are what Kirk Ferentz is known for, and linebackers. And so if you get you've got depth. Who that person is that actually ends up filling a spot, we don't know for sure. But it's probably going to be someone good. They're going to be okay on the defensive line.
It is starting to mist out here, so I've got a bone to pick with Brad Edwards. He's out here tailgating somewhere. We're going to go find him after the show. But now we've got to get into the big man on campus. You've hit on it already. Spencer Petras, to me, has to be the big man and take ownership of this offense today. We've seen what happens. The Northwestern game and the Nebraska game come to mind with turnovers where they really threaten them, and that's where Iowa gets in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, if he can just let Goodson do the work, if he can just let his wide receivers, Johnson, go up and get the ball, if he can let those guys do the work, he'll be fine. It's when he starts to force things, it's when he starts to get under pressure and make bad decisions. The amount of energy that's going to be in the stadium is going to speed up his decision-making process. If he can stay calm, stay cool, stay collected, get the ball out to his receivers, that offense rolls. If he starts to panic and make bad decisions, Indiana's going to be good enough to jump on something and make those mistakes pay.
Absolutely. Well, coming up here on CyHawk Game Day, we're going to dive into our 3 keys for a win for both Iowa and Iowa State today. Stay with us here on Local 5.
The weather couldn't be better out there for both games. We got a little bit of a northwest breeze here in Iowa City. There will be a lot of clouds around most of the day here. High around 74 degrees, 2:30 kickoff. Probably still cloudy, and there's a slight chance of maybe a little bitty shower for especially eastern Iowa. But in Ames, a better chance of sunshine by kickoff, 75 degrees. I think we'll see more sunshine throughout the game out there, and very little chance of a rain, but still a nice breeze coming out of the northwest. You can see temperatures this morning in the 60s out there. 66 in Ames, about 69 in Iowa City. A few little showers may pop up through eastern Iowa. I don't think Ames will see any of these, and by 3 o'clock the sun starts to come out in Ames, and then later in the day the sunshine comes out in Iowa City. But if you stay there long enough and tailgate long enough, it will get cool again, so you might keep those sweatshirts handy.
All righty, thank you, Brad. We're loving this weather. I'll take it, like I said, over 95 and hot, sunny, muggy any time of year for week one.
100%.
All righty, let's dive into our three keys. We're going to start with the Iowa Hawkeyes getting a victory against Indiana, and first and foremost, off the top, take care of the football. Turnovers were the deciding factor one way or the other for the Hawkeyes last year. Penn State game is the one where it went their way. You remember Davion Nixon's giant return for the touchdown on the pick six. Well, you know how that went. Then number two, let Tyler Goodson carry the load on offense. We've hit on it. He's one of the most dynamic players in the Big Ten. We need to see if he can handle the bell cow role. There are plenty of complementary pieces behind him in that running back room, but Goodson needs 20 carries today. The defensive line has to prove itself this year. John Wagner will step in at defensive end. They have to find a way to fill the void left by Golston and Nixon, two big-time playmakers on that front. Everywhere else on that D-line, though, is going to be absolutely solid, so we'll see what shakes out with Iowa. Jeff, Iowa State, three keys.
All right, first one, yes, it's a little bit obvious. Score. So in the games past, Iowa State, I mean, they've gotten their yards. I think last game, the last time these two played, the triple overtime game, it was, I think Iowa State outgained UNI by 200 yards, but they still took 3 overtimes to end up getting that win. So you have to convert those long drives into touchdowns and points, so you have to score. The second one, in Matt Campbell's opening season games, he has won the turnover battle. His teams have won the turnover battle a grand total of 1 time. That's led to some of the difficulties of actually winning. So they've got to win the turnover battle. And the other one is stay glued, because Will McElvain or whoever they put at quarterback is just known for scrambling and making big plays happen. You're more talented. Keep them in the pocket. Make them execute down the field. Don't let these chance big plays happen. Stay glued, score, win the turnover battle, and Iowa State will be okay.
All righty, thank you, Jeff. Up next, well, we're going to wrap things up. Plus, we'll give you our 5 plays of the day around college football, including Iowa and Iowa State. Welcome back out for CyHawk Gameday at Jack Trice Stadium. A big day ahead, but a lot of big games around college football. We're going to get right to it. Wisconsin, Penn State. Wisconsin hosting this one. Penn State 5.5-point dog. I like the Nittany Lions.
I don't know. I mean, call me crazy. I don't know why Penn State's ranked. They did not play well last year. Yes, they had opt-outs. Give me Wisconsin.
Iowa, a 4-point favorite last check. That line might have moved to 3. I like Iowa at -4, though.
Give me the Hawkeyes in this one.
Alrighty, UNI, Iowa State, 29.5. UNI covers, Iowa State win.
Yeah, it's just such a high line. Give me the Panthers and the points, I guess.
The big showdown, Georgia, Clemson. Georgia the dog by 3. I like Clemson, though, -3.
Same. Georgia always tends to play, air quotes, well in big games. So give me the Tigers.
And then lastly, OU, Tulane. OU -31.
Same thing. Huge line. Give me Tulane just because why not?
Alrighty, a lot of fun here on CyHawk Game Day. Join us next week for an even bigger matchup here in Ames.